The penthouse was never this quiet. No footsteps pounding down the marble hallway. No toys crashing against walls. No voices screaming for attention. Just silence. The kind that wraps around your throat and squeezes. Lucas Parker stood in the entryway of his Washington, D.C. high-rise, frowning. His briefcase slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a dull thud. Something was wrong. Carter. Levi. Isaac. Nothing. He moved through the kitchen, empty. The game room, untouched. His heart started hammering in his chest. Where were they? He reached the last door at the end of the hall and pushed it open. And what he saw knocked the breath clean out of him. 3 little boys on their knees. Hands folded. Heads bowed. And beside them, Emily, the maid he barely spoke to, leading them in prayer. Carter whispered, "Thank you, God, for helping me not be so angry today." Levi said, "Thank you for Emily. And for making my stomach stop hurting." Isaac just held her hand, eyes full of something Lucas hadn't seen in years. Peace. Lucas Parker, self-made billionaire, Forbes Top 50, the man who buried his wife without shedding a tear, felt his chest crack wide open. And for the first time in 4 years, he cried. If you've ever felt like you were losing the people you love most, or if you've ever wondered if one person can really change everything, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button. Because some stories don't just entertain. They remind us what really matters. That night, Lucas didn't sleep. He sat alone in the guest bathroom, the one his wife Laura used to fill with candles and lavender soap and warmth. He turned on the sink just to drown out the sound of his own breathing. Her voice came back to him like a whisper. Money builds walls, Lucas. But love? Love tears them down. He hadn't let himself feel anything in 4 years. Not since the accident. Not since the funeral. Not since the day he decided that burying himself in work was easier than facing the emptiness at home. But tonight, something shifted. Because the woman he barely noticed, the maid from a small town who was never supposed to matter, had just shown him what he'd been too broken to see. His sons didn't need a bigger house. They didn't need more tutors or guards or expensive toys. They needed someone to stay. And Emily Smith had stayed. 4 years earlier, the penthouse wasn't quiet. It was alive. Laura Parker filled every room with warmth. She sang while she cooked. She read bedtime stories in different voices. She turned ordinary Tuesdays into adventures. The triplets, Carter, Levi, and Isaac, were only 2 years old, but they already knew what love felt like. It sounded like their mother's laughter. It smelled like vanilla and cinnamon. It looked like her smile every time they ran into her arms. And then one rainy Thursday in October, she was gone. A drunk driver ran a red light on Connecticut Avenue. Laura never saw it coming. The funeral was held at St. Matthew's Cathedral. Lucas stood in the front row, stone-faced, shaking hands with people he didn't know. He didn't cry. Not once. Not even when they lowered her casket into the ground. The boys were too young to understand. They kept asking when Mommy was coming home. Lucas didn't have an answer. So he did what he knew how to do. He worked. He buried himself in meetings, mergers, acquisitions. Anything to avoid the silence. Anything to avoid the truth. The penthouse became a museum. Beautiful. Cold. Empty. The triplets grew older, angrier, more lost. Nannies came and went. None of them lasted. Some quit after a week. Others didn't make it past the first tantrum. Lucas's mother, Eleanor Parker, believed in control. Structure. Discipline. Hire professionals, she said. Get them therapists. Tutors. Don't let them fall apart. But they were already falling apart. And Lucas? He was too far gone to notice. Until one quiet afternoon, when a woman with kind eyes and a soft voice walked through the door. She wasn't supposed to change anything. She was just there to clean. But sometimes, the people who save us are the ones we never see coming. Emily Smith arrived on a Tuesday morning in May. She wasn't expected. The agency sent her as a last-minute replacement after the previous maid walked out without notice. No interview. No background check. Just a polite knock on the door and a nervous smile. Lucas barely looked up from his laptop. You're here to clean. Start with the kitchen. Stay out of my office. Emily nodded. Yes, sir. She didn't ask questions. She didn't try to make small talk. She just picked up her supplies and got to work. The triplets watched her from the hallway. Carter, the oldest by 3 minutes, crossed his arms. You're not staying long. Nobody does. Emily looked at him. Really looked at him. Why do you say that? Because we're bad, Levi said quietly. Isaac didn't say anything. He just stared at the floor. Emily set down her bucket and knelt to their level. You're not bad. You're hurting. And that's not the same thing. Carter's face twisted. You don't know anything about us. You're right, Emily said softly. But I'd like to. If you'll let me. They didn't respond. They just walked away. But something in Emily's chest told her to stay. That night, she didn't leave when her shift ended. She quietly walked to the boys' room and knocked on the door. Can I tell you a story? No answer. She opened the door anyway. The boys were sitting on their beds, arms crossed, faces hard. Emily sat on the floor. Once upon a time, there were 3 brave lions. By the end of the story, Carter had stopped glaring. Levi had crawled closer. And Isaac? He was holding her hand. If you've ever been the one who stayed when everyone else left, or if you've ever needed someone to stay for you, you understand what this moment meant. Don't scroll past this. Subscribe. Because this story is about to show you what real love looks like. But staying wasn't going to be easy. Because the next morning, Eleanor Parker walked through that door. And she had no intention of letting Emily stay. Eleanor Parker didn't knock. She never did. She walked into the penthouse like she owned it, heels clicking against the marble floor, designer purse swinging from her arm. Lucas, she called out. We need to talk. Lucas appeared from his office, tie loosened, exhaustion written all over his face. Mom, what are you doing here? I came to check on my grandsons. She glanced around the room. Where's the new girl? Emily? She's with the boys. Eleanor's jaw tightened. With the boys? Lucas, she's a maid. Not a nanny. She's helping, Lucas said flatly. Helping. Eleanor's voice rose. You don't even know her. No credentials. No training. She could be anyone. Lucas rubbed his temples. She's doing her job. The boys like her. That's enough. Like her. Eleanor scoffed. They're children. They don't know what they need. You need professionals. Real caregivers. Not some girl playing house. Lucas didn't respond. He just walked past her toward the boys' room. Eleanor followed. I'm serious, Lucas. This is your family. Your reputation. You can't afford to. She stopped mid-sentence. Through the cracked door, they could see Emily sitting on the floor with the triplets. She was reading to them, her voice soft and steady. Carter was leaning against her shoulder. Levi was tracing pictures in the book. Isaac was smiling. Actually smiling. Eleanor's expression hardened. This is inappropriate. This is the first time they've smiled in months, Lucas said quietly. Eleanor turned to him, eyes sharp. Then hire someone qualified. Not her. Lucas didn't answer. But deep down, he knew something Eleanor didn't. Emily wasn't just cleaning the house. She was putting it back together. But Eleanor Parker wasn't the type to lose. And if Lucas wouldn't get rid of Emily, she would. It started small. Eleanor began showing up unannounced. She'd walk through the penthouse, inspecting everything, questioning everything. Why are the boys eating this? She'd ask, eyeing the mac and cheese Emily made. Why is their bedtime so late? Why is she the one tucking them in? Emily never argued. She just smiled politely and kept doing her job. But the boys noticed. Why doesn't Grandma like you? Levi asked one night. Emily tucked the blanket around him. Some people don't understand love when it doesn't look the way they expect. Carter frowned. That's dumb. Emily smiled. Maybe. But it's okay. I'm not going anywhere. Except she was wrong. One afternoon, while Lucas was at a board meeting, Eleanor came to the penthouse alone. She found Emily folding laundry in the boys' room. "We need to talk," Eleanor said, closing the door behind her. Emily straightened. "Of course, Mrs. Parker." Eleanor pulled an envelope from her purse and placed it on the dresser. "There's $50,000 in there. Take it. Leave today. Don't say goodbye." Emily stared at the envelope. Then at Eleanor. "I'm not leaving." "You don't belong here," Eleanor said coldly. "You're a maid. Not their mother. Not family. You're nothing to them." Emily's voice stayed calm. "With all due respect, ma'am, I think the boys would disagree." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "You think you're helping them? You're confusing them. Giving them false hope. When you leave, and you will, they'll be devastated all over again." "Then I won't leave," Emily said simply. Eleanor laughed bitterly. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't your life. It's borrowed. And it ends when I say it does." The next morning, Emily didn't show up for work. The boys tore through the penthouse looking for her. But she was gone. And Lucas? He had no idea why. The house fell apart in 3 days. Carter stopped eating. Levi had nightmares every night. Isaac wouldn't speak at all. He just sat by the window, staring out at the street like he was waiting for someone to come back. Lucas tried everything. He hired another nanny. She lasted 2 hours. He tried to comfort them himself, but every time he sat down, they turned away. "Where's Emily?" Carter demanded. "She had to go," Lucas said weakly. "Why?" "I don't know." "You're lying," Carter said, tears streaming down his face. "You always lie." Lucas flinched like he'd been slapped. That night, Eleanor came by to check on them. She walked into chaos. Toys thrown everywhere. Levi sobbing in the corner. Isaac staring blankly at the wall. "See," Eleanor said. "This is what happens when you let someone unqualified get too close. They'll settle down. Children are resilient." Lucas looked at her. Really looked at her. "No. This is what happens when you rip away the only person who made them feel safe." Eleanor blinked. "What are you talking about?" "You paid her to leave, didn't you?" Silence. Lucas's voice dropped. "Didn't you?" Eleanor lifted her chin. "I did what was best for this family." "You did what was best for your image," Lucas said, his voice shaking. "You didn't care about them. You cared about control." "Lucas. Get out." Eleanor stared at him. "Excuse me." "Get out." His voice cracked. "I'll find her. And I'll bring her back. And if you ever try to hurt my family again, you won't be welcome here." Eleanor's face went pale. Without another word, she turned and left. Have you ever realized too late that the person holding everything together was the one you took for granted? Don't let this moment pass you by. Hit subscribe. Because what happens next will break you, and then put you back together. Lucas grabbed his keys. He didn't know where Emily was. But he was going to find her. Even if it took everything he had. Lucas started with the agency. They had no forwarding address. No phone number. Nothing. He tried calling her old number. Disconnected. He drove to the address listed on her application. It was an apartment complex in Arlington, Virginia. The landlord said she'd moved out 2 days ago. Paid in cash. Left no trace. Lucas sat in his car, head in his hands. He'd spent years building an empire, closing impossible deals, solving problems no one else could solve. But this? He had no idea where to start. Then he remembered something. Emily had mentioned once in passing that she grew up near a small church in Fredericksburg. St. Anne's. She said it was the only place that ever felt like home. It was a long shot. But it was all he had. He drove an hour south, pulling up to a small white chapel surrounded by oak trees. The parking lot was empty except for one car. Lucas walked inside. The sanctuary was quiet, lit only by afternoon sunlight streaming through stained glass windows. And there, sitting in the front pew, was Emily. She didn't turn around. She just sat there, hands folded, head bowed. Lucas walked slowly down the aisle. His footsteps echoed in the silence. "Emily." She looked up. Her eyes were red. "I'm sorry," Lucas said, his voice breaking. "I didn't know. I didn't know she—" "It's okay," Emily said quietly. "No, it's not." Lucas sat down beside her. "You gave my sons something I couldn't. You gave them hope. Peace. You gave them you. And I let my mother take that away." Emily looked at him. "Why are you here, Mr. Parker?" "Because I need you," Lucas said. "Not as a maid. Not as an employee. As family. The boys need you. And if I'm being honest—" His voice cracked. "So do I." Emily didn't answer right away. She just stared at him, tears spilling down her cheeks. And for the first time, Lucas wondered if he was too late. Emily wiped her eyes. "I can't go back to being invisible, Lucas." "You were never invisible," Lucas said. "I was just too blind to see you." She shook her head. "Your mother made it very clear. I'm not family. I'm not qualified. I'm just—" "You're everything," Lucas interrupted. "You're the reason my sons smile again. You're the reason they pray. You're the reason I'm sitting here right now, begging you to come home." Emily's lip trembled. What if she tries again? What if? "She won't," Lucas said firmly. "Because I won't let her. And if she does, she'll never step foot in my house again." Emily searched his face. "You mean that?" "I swear it." Silence hung between them. Then Emily nodded. "Okay." Lucas exhaled, relief flooding through him. "Okay." "I'll come back," Emily said. "But not as a maid. If I'm going to be part of their lives, I need to actually be part of their lives." Lucas smiled for the first time in days. "Deal." The drive back to D.C. felt like forever. But when they finally pulled up to the penthouse, the boys were waiting by the window. The second Emily stepped out of the car, the door flew open. "Emily!" Carter screamed. All three boys came running. They crashed into her, wrapping their arms around her waist, burying their faces in her shirt. Emily dropped to her knees and held them tight. "I'm here. I'm here." Levi was crying. "You left." "I know," Emily whispered. "But I came back. And I'm not leaving again. Ever." Isaac looked up at her, his small voice barely audible. "Promise." Emily kissed his forehead. "I promise." Lucas stood back, watching. His chest felt tight, but this time it wasn't from grief. It was from something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. But just as things were starting to heal, Eleanor Parker made one final move. And this time, it would change everything. Eleanor showed up the next morning. Lucas opened the door, his jaw tight. "What do you want?" Eleanor looked older somehow. Tired. "I came to apologize." Lucas didn't move. "You don't get to just—" "I know," Eleanor said quietly. "I know I don't. But I need to say it anyway." She stepped inside. The boys were in the living room with Emily, building a tower out of blocks. When they saw Eleanor, they went silent. Eleanor walked over slowly. She knelt down in front of them, her voice soft. "I made a mistake. A big one. I thought I knew what was best for you. But I was wrong." Carter stared at her. "You made Emily leave." "I did," Eleanor said. "And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Levi frowned. "Why'd you do it?" Eleanor's voice cracked. "Because I was scared. I was scared of losing control. Of losing you. Of not being enough." She looked at Emily. "But this woman? She's been enough. She's been more than enough. And I should have seen that from the beginning." Emily's eyes softened. Eleanor stood and turned to Lucas. "I don't expect you to forgive me. But I'm asking you to let me try. Let me be a better grandmother. A better mother." Her voice broke. "Please." Lucas didn't answer right away. He looked at Emily. She nodded. Finally, Lucas exhaled. "One chance, Mom. That's it." Eleanor nodded, tears streaming down her face. "That's all I need." For the first time in 4 years, the Parker family felt whole. But the hardest part wasn't over. It was just beginning. 6 months later, the penthouse looked different. Not because of new furniture or fresh paint, but because it felt alive again. Carter was laughing again. Levi's nightmares had stopped. Isaac talked more, smiled more, lived more. And Lucas? He was home. Not just physically, but emotionally. He cut back his hours. He showed up for bedtime. He learned how to make pancakes, badly, but the boys didn't care. Emily was still there. Not as a maid. As family. One evening, after the boys were asleep, Lucas found Emily sitting on the balcony, looking out over the city. He sat down beside her. "You okay?" Emily smiled. "Yeah, I'm good." "Thank you," Lucas said quietly. "For everything. For staying. For believing in us when I didn't even believe in myself." Emily looked at him. "You don't have to thank me, Lucas. This is where I'm supposed to be." Lucas reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. "I love you," he said. "I don't know when it happened. But it did. And I needed you to know." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too." They sat there in the quiet, hands intertwined, hearts finally at peace. Inside, the boys slept soundly. Safe. Loved. Whole. And for the first time in years, the Parker house wasn't just a place people lived. It was a home. If this story reminded you that love isn't about perfection, it's about showing up, then don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe. Share this. Because someone out there needs to hear that it's never too late to heal. It's never too late to love. And it's never too late to come home.